What's up, guys? In today's video I'm just going to go through the process of making some nice fire using all the Createx paints available to get the best results and the cleanest look. Let's get started. Alright, so first let's go over the panel itself that we're going to be painting on today. So this is a piece of a 12 gauge weld metal, steel, and I went ahead and sanded it down using 240 grit. Using 240 grit directly on the metal is not really going to leave deep gouges or anything, but it's going to rough up the metal really nice. And then all I did is lay down some Autoborn sealer black. Before laying the Autoborn sealer, I did degrease the surface, and I have I've had pretty good results using this high-tech 7800 wipeout surface prep. You just put it on a rag, you clean it off, and you give it a good 15 minutes, 20 minutes, let it dry up real good, and then I gave this like a few coats of the Autoborn sealer black. You reduce this down about 10 to 15%. I feel it flows out really good, even out of an airbrush. Yeah, you just got a nice even coat of black, and that's what we're gonna do. Before I start painting my fire on here, I am gonna take a sand pad, or what a lot of people know as a scuff pad, and we're gonna go ahead and wipe this, hit the surface. We're gonna rough it up just to give our paint something to kind of grab onto and sit. As well as when we lay the final top coat, the top coat will have something to grab onto all around the edges, which will make the whole thing kind of seal in really good. But anyway, these sand pads are available in like a medium grit, and then the grays are like in a fine grit. There's lots of different brands. 3M makes them, Merca makes them. There's like a bunch of different companies, but get yourself a nice sand pad. I've seen people use like Scotch-Brite pads, and while those can work for certain things, having a nice sand pad is just a good idea. You can wash these, reuse them, and like this one here I've used so much it's starting to develop holes. See that? And I just wash it out, clean it out when I'm done using it, and then get it ready for the next project. And eventually when they get like this, I replace them out. But that's all I'm gonna do is take some of this, and we're gonna go ahead and just hit the surface. Now on fresh sealer like this, you probably don't have to really rub it really hard, but it will take any kind of little pieces of dust or little nibs or anything like that kind of right off. This panel has also been drying overnight, so the sealer is nice and dry. I'm not worried about it being wet. So make sure you give your sealer a good amount of time. This one's been drying actually like more than 24 hours. So okay, just sand it up, and you'll see right away that kind of like this, the shiny of the surface goes away. So on anything you're working on, you just kind of want to make sure you always prep your surface and give yourself a nice surface for your paint to actually grab on and have something to, have a layer of adhesion there. It helps a lot. So even if you're not going to use a sand pad, I'm a big fan of using 1000 grit wet sandpaper and prepping surfaces with the wet sandpaper. But on something like this where it's just a panel and we're going to just clear it over and it's just black, the sand pad will do just fine. So there you go. Got this shine off of there, and you can actually see just how smooth it is. It's really smooth. So we're gonna go ahead and wipe it off, right? I'm gonna take. All right, so once we have it sanded off right here, obviously you've seen it, I didn't really touch it with my bare hands or anything like that. I'm trying not to get any oils on it. If you do happen to get some contaminants on the surface, you could always use some more of that surface prep to really kind of wipe it off. But all I'm going to do is take a tack cloth, right? we're just gonna kind of just try to collect, see some of that residue from the sanding. And that's all we're trying to do. We're not trying to stick the tack cloth on. If you're using a fresh tack cloth, make sure you open up the tack cloth all the way, let it air out for a little bit, and you don't want to press down on the surface. I'm just kind of running it over the surface nice and light, and you can see that it just picks everything up. Just like that. Now once it comes out, you know, pretty much clean, I think we're ready. So we'll dry it one more time. There you go, it's pretty much coming back clean, so I'm going to put this tack cloth away and we're ready to paint. Alright guys, so now let's go a little bit over the paint that we're going to be using today, just so we could all be on the same page here. So obviously you've seen me do the same process using the original Createx line, and then the Wicked line, and you've seen me do the candy colors. In this particular video, we're going to combine all of that to really achieve the most, you know, kind of to achieve the most cool looking effect, so the most vibrant and awesome looking fire. And to achieve that, we're going to be using the new Wicked Opaques, or Opaques as we like to call them around here. The new Wicked Opaques, and I'm going to be using white, red, and this is the Wicked Opaque Hansa Yellow. So the Wicked Opaque Hansa Yellow is the one I'm going to be using, and the Wicked Opaque, this is Pyrrole Orange. So those are the four colors I'm going to be using from the new opaque set. The reason, you know, you could always stop. So I'm only going to be using those four colors. You could obviously step it up more if you want to create more layers of fire, but I feel like from my personal experience, these four colors is probably enough. And to go along with that, we're going to be using some of the Createx candy just to kind of give it all a little bit more depth, and also those finishing touches that will be able to kind of blend it all in together. So if you've never used the Createx candy, it's the Createx Candy 2.0, and I'm going to be using Candy Blood Red, which is these two bottles right here. We have this one, and some Lemon Yellow for the last highlights, right? So use the Blood Red around the edges to really melt in the red into like the black, right? So it's a really good way of getting that. And at the very end, when we got our highlights in and everything, we're going to blend everything in with a little lemon yellow. So you mix this in with the 40/50 gloss. I like doing about a 20% mix. So what is you know, essentially 5 to 1. So 5 parts clear to 1 part candy here. And usually that sprays pretty good. If you have any trouble spraying that, using a little bit of 4011 reducer will work great. Not too much, just a little bit. With the candy, you could also reduce down the Wicked Opaque sets, the Wicked Opaque colors using the 4011. And then for in between our candy coats, having a little bit of 40/40 bleed checker might help, just to make sure your colors kind of stay where you want them and the layers don't start mixing in between themselves. Laying a little 40/40 bleed checker, you know, over the candies can really help to seal them in place and let that layer live where it's going to live without having to blend in with the next ones. It's not always necessary, but in this particular case, we might lay some, you know, some of the yellow over some of the red, but we want the red to kind of still have that, you know, red without turning orange or mixing in with any of our other colors. Laying in some bleed checker will stop all of that. So anyway, let's go ahead and get started. Alright guys, so one last thing you're probably going to need, or you will need, is a nice curve set, right? So you can go ahead and just cut out, you know, even if in the past I've done this using like bottle cans or lids to, you know, stuff, and you just need a nice set of curves. This particular curve set is the one that I sell, you know, so if you're interested in that, just go to this website, you know, mikesbrush.com, And you know, I sell them for 20 bucks, really cheap, inexpensive, and they're highly reusable. As you can see, these have been used quite a bit, and you can actually just wash them off and reuse them again and again. But you will need a nice curved set, so always make sure you get yourself one. Lots of artists have different ones. I've kind of made this one to the way that I like using the curves. So yeah. Anyway, let's go ahead and get started. So today we're going to be starting off with the Wicked Opaque Red, the Pyrrole Red here, and we're going to use this with a little bit of reducer. We're going to kind of reduce it down a little bit to really lay down just our outline of our flame and kind of just lay down a guide of where we want it. So if you've never done flames before, it really helps to have a reference photo that you're something you're trying to achieve, and or have studied a lot of pictures of flames, so that you kind of have a good idea of what you're trying to accomplish, right? So in this particular case, you know, I'll put the picture of the kind of finished product right next to it here, so you guys can keep an eye on that and see how we start building it up. So anyway, let's go ahead and mix up some red. And I'm just going to mix this up about 4 to 1, 4 parts paint, 1 part reducer. Make sure you shake it up really good before you pour it into your airbrush. And this stuff has really good coverage. And this first layer, maybe you want it just a little bit lighter, and it's okay if it kind of blends down a little bit, as we can always use the candy coats at the very end to really kind of reinforce the red and blend everything together nicely. So I'm just going to shake that up. Okay, so once you got some red flowing through, all I'm going to do is just freehand really quickly, just kind of a good edge of where I want my flame to be centered. So I'm just going to make, you know, like a nice triangle figure using kind of a flame pattern to get it in there. So not really heavy, just kind of nice and light. And say I want my flame to come all the way up like this. Kind of wispy, nice little dagger strokes, like going up and down and around. That's all I really want to do just then. And now you can't really see it on camera too well, I don't think, or you kind of can, but I really want that to just be really faint, because we're just going to build that up, right? So using the new opaques, you could go ahead and just line up to where you laid your design down, and then hit the edges, right? And so once you hit an edge, I like using the pull away technique, right? So where you don't just hit that edge, you kind of pull away from it. See how I pulled away from that? So it kind of starts building up an edge towards this side, and then I'll use a different curve to kind of connect it over here, right? So I'll put this down, hit that edge, and then I'll bring up towards the other side. See that? Now they're connected, right? And we're going to go ahead and kind of do that for this whole bottom set. And you don't want to overdo it, right? So you don't want this just being repetitive everywhere. So maybe you want to mix it up and bring in some of these like S curves, right? So the reason I like you bring that in, and then you bring it off of that tip right there. See, now you kind of got a flame kind of going out and going back in, right? And then you bring the same thing kind of on the other side. See that? And we just start building up the flame, going around with some red. And in the past, you know, you would have had to have laid white and then lay down some transparent red over. Even with the candy, you have to kind of build it up. But using the new opaques, it's really super simple to get some nice designs. So as you can see there on that particular flame, I not only connected it to this one, but I also connected it down to this side over here. Right, so you kind of just got to work your way around. And get creative with it. You see that? I hit that edge, but it's really the highlight point going up and down that really kind of connects that all together. Same thing on this other side here. And I'm going to bring one this way and one that way. I'm pulling away from the stencil, right? So now they're connected, kind of going around, and it's all just one nice big piece of fire. Now you see how this piece kind of goes up right here. Maybe I want to use this big S to again give our flame some shape, and then I'm going to pull away going up. Right, so like kind of at an angle right there. You see how we kind of built that up that way? Nice and easy. So you just want to take your time. Like I said, it really helps if you have a reference picture, so you know kind of where you want your flames to go. And then on areas where it gets smaller, obviously it helps to have some smaller curves. And so included in the set that I sell, it already comes with a large set, a medium set, and a small set, so you can kind of play around with it. And here we go, we're all the way to the end. Right. So then we'll go back down here. Maybe I want to use some of the curves on this medium set to kind of offset some of the other ones. Alright. You bring this in on this side. You see this other one over here. And right now, all I'm doing is building up the initial base and the curves. Right? We're not really trying to give it super definition right off the bat. We're going to build it up, right? So just like kind of how you build up, your layers of base, and you build up a clear coat. Same way we're going to build up the fire. Got to build it layer by layer. And so this nice deep red layer is kind of our base of where our fire is going to come up, and then we're going to lay our other colors. So here's down here at the bottom. You could decide if you want a really heavy focal point to be bright, or if you want it to just kind of be like more like a campfire where it always kind of just has a nice spot, but it also just kind of has a nice wispy flame kind of going up. So make your own decisions here. All right. And so once we got our red, using our stencils in there, I'm just going to take a little bit of that same opaque red, and we're going to lay in some nice freehand to kind of connect everything. And also you want to kind of bring off some tails, right? Maybe you want to give some ends, some of that, all the way up to the top. Always go back, add some more if you feel like there needs more. Now, this middle spot, maybe leave it just a little bit, because we're going to build up a lot of the other colors kind of in the center area, right? So we're going to want some of the red to show, but we're going to use the orange and the yellow to really build up the meat, or the center part, the bright part of the flame, and that'll give it the most kind of a vibrant effect. It will bring some of the orange into the red. But really we're going to use this center part to really bring in a lot of the flame in. So I'm going to switch over to the Wicked Opaque Orange, Again, this is the Wicked Opaque Pyrrole Orange, and we're going to start layering that in. Alright, so we have our orange all loaded up. And again, done the same, about a 20% reduction, 5% paint, 5 parts paint, 1 part reducer. That just helps it float, and it also encourages you to build it up instead of just laying a heavy film right away. You kind of have to build it up in coats, and that's the best way of kind of building this up. So we're just going to again take our red that we already have, and we've already laid in our little freehand kind of trails coming in. And now off of these same kind of curves here, we don't want to go on that same curve, right? We're going to kind of bring it down a little bit. Maybe going off the edge of that curve. And we're going to bring the orange right up in there. And then we're going to bring it out towards the center of that. You see this loop here? Bring it around. So it's all about just kind of building up what you've already done with the red. And we're going to work it around. And again, using the new opaques, it's really easy because you don't have to lay a white in between coat and get that really smoky, weird look. Just lay the orange in. Just build it up nice and easy. You can see there I kind of brought it in there. You could always bring some freehand back around to kind of build that edge, you see there. And then we bring in a nice big center piece right here. And kind of coming down there, and we're going to kind of bring in the same loop all the way down like this. Right. And then work in some freehand. And once you start working the orange in, you're going to want to work in a little bit more freehand, a little bit more designs kind of going around. Which will give it a really nice look. And don't forget to use the S's here. Some of this here. See, what I'm doing here is creating a crevice or disjointing the flame. So this part here, you'll be able to see through, kind of flames kind of just coming off. So you'll be able to see through some of the parts, just like you would in a campfire. I always like using a campfire as an example because that's kind of like my favorite kind of fire, it's like brings the most kind of nice memories, I guess. It's a nice campfire when you got it going and it's just like, letting off a nice little flame right after you initially light it and stuff. It's like the start of a good time, So all I'm doing is kind of working it around again. And right, we're trying to build up the meat, so the center part of where we made the red, what I call the meat of the flame, and that's kind of what we're trying to build, right? We're not trying to like go off into La La Land over here, and then we're trying to keep our efforts concentrated on the inside parts of that red. So it's always very important to remember that. And again, as we get to the top, maybe you want to bring in the smaller stencil. Freehand, maybe going back and around. The flame has this weird way of doing things. And so we're keeping it pretty traditional fire. We're not trying to create some fantasy fire or nothing like that. Like I said, I like the campfire look, and I feel like that's kind of the one most people will resonate with. When you see it, it's like, oh yeah, that's freaking fire, So you can see I've kind of just worked it in, a little bit of freehand around it. Alright guys, so I've laid in all the orange, kind of just building it up off of the bottom and going up. I've given it about 15 minutes to dry, right? So the reason I give it a little bit of time to dry is we want to build up the next coat. And we're actually just going to keep it with the orange, and we're just going to go ahead and build up some of these highlights just a little bit more. Again, we did reduce it down a little bit, so you should be able to just kind of go back and see like maybe this edge right here. We want to pop it out and bring that edge maybe going this way. Right, and you see you can build up a nice brighter orange. And also you see like maybe in here I want to add an extra, you know, an extra curve right up in here, you know. And you can build up some of that brighter orange kind of going around. See how it's starting to get really orange, just kind of going over it that second time. And that's all I really want to do is that's why we were going to build up the flame. Right? Just take a little bit of orange, the same orange. And even if you want to spray it straight out of the bottle to get the most coverage during this particular coat, but I do recommend you do a build-up coat because you will have those nice little more subtle spots of orange as well for when we lay our candy over. It'll give it its most depth. All I'm doing is just kind of going in, reinforcing that orange. You'll really see the flame start to take shape and really begin to pop. Because we want that flame to be vibrant, you know, just like a flame in real life where it's like, it gives off light. You know, you almost want to feel like the panel is going to give off light. So build up the orange. Use your nice curves and your edges. Throw in some freehand. You know, you want to build it towards the bottom. And also in like these empty spots here, maybe you want to throw in some nice fainter kind of ones there and kind of just show that there's another layer of flame back there. Also very nice. See how it's starting to just brighten up and really just start to take shape. See how we've really brightened up that orange and have really just brought it out to a point where it's really, really vibrant. And working your freehand, you can brighten up those spots. And it's okay if you have kind of like some trails kind of going off, right? So a little bit of like maybe like this, right? Because when we lay our candy coat over, we're going to kind of really just put those right back into the background. With some candy, so just have a little fun with it, play with it, you know. Just make sure you build up a nice layer of orange, really where your fire, where you want it to be, kind of going all the way up. That's it. I'll load up some yellow. Gonna let this dry again another 15 minutes or so. Make sure that the colors are in there, and then we're not gonna be soaking the material or soaking any kind of paint. We really want to just let this dry for a little bit so our next coat really goes on nice and easy, nice and smooth. Alright guys, so I have our wicked opaque Hansa yellow here loaded up. Now I've done a very light reduction, so I've done maybe about 10% reducer on this. Much lighter reduction. We kind of want the yellow to be a lot brighter, more vibrant, so we've reduced it a little bit less. And I'm just going to go ahead and start building up the yellow coat the same way that we did the orange and the red. I'm just kind of taking a piece of paper towel, making sure my stencil is nice and dry here before we start. You just always lay it on a flat surface, dampen it down. And then I like, you know, if I've dampened down that surface, I like maybe using the back side now, you know, since this side's kind of wiped off. You know, use the back side. Also, the curves will be a little bit different if you use this back side. So I'm going to start here at the very bottom, right, which is where we want the most yellow. And again, with the lighter reduction, I'm going to bring the yellow straight into the orange like this, right? We really want to build up the center part, what I call the meat of the flame, right? Every time we're painting, I feel like we're just adding on to the like more center-ish parts of the flame, right? Not going off into the wild over here with the yellow. We're kind of staying and more focused on the center part. Throw your little freehand in there, right? And you really start to see the flame start to take shape. Now, if you want the brightness at the bottom, right, you want to lay in that brightness nice and good. Just kind of work your way around. Trails kind of going off here. Again, it's always possible with the candy to just kind of hit this back, and we're going to push some of those trails back, and maybe even some of the tones, you know, just tone it down maybe a little bit. You don't want it to be so bright. You can always do that back with the candy. So if you feel like you've made a mistake, you know, just hold on. Just keep working on it, because it might just turn out to be all a happy mistake, you know. Just working the yellow around, making sure I kind of build up my fire. Working that fire around, throwing a little freehand around it, and it'll start becoming harder to see the red, but it's still there. And like I said, when we lay the candy back over, as well as the top coat, it's really going to become a lot more noticeable. So if you really start feeling like you're deafening out your red, don't be discouraged, because it's still there. It's still going to show, especially when you lay your clear coat. And like I said, we're still going to lay some candy on here, so just some words of encouragement, you know, keep pushing, keeping it moving. Again, towards the top here, you know, maybe you want to use a smaller stencil. Some of these little X's right here, like that, right? You want to bring that around. This. Anyway. Bring some freehand in around. Obviously, if you want the bright spot to be at the bottom here, a good amount of you know, just freehand strokes right here. Maybe you want to build in the yellow just a little bit heavier, going down. Simple. And just kind of keep building it up, and it's kind of just starting to look like a flame, right? Now here at this point, I'm going to lay some candy red. So the candy is interesting, as you could have it pre-mixed in bottles like this, and which is kind of what I do. You know, I have some nice little mixing bottles like this. I throw in some 40/50, I throw in some candy, and then I just shake it up. I don't throw reducer in here, right? I leave it unreduced, and then I throw it into my airbrush, and then I'll kind of feel it out, and then add reducer accordingly. Maybe just a little bit of reducer, because usually when you add the candy in, it already feels like really nice and smooth. So I'm just gonna go ahead and throw in some blood red candy. All right, now taking the blood red candy, I'm just gonna go around the edge, and I'm just gonna kind of reinforce that red. Right. And all those little trailings that we did and all that, and kind of give those a nice red coat. And it's okay if you deafen some of this down. We're gonna go back and re-highlight some of it. Like this is just kind of the beginning of our fire here. Is once you lay this candy, you'll really see it really start to really pop, you know, a little bit more on these inside parts. And then you're gonna lay in a little bit of blood red right up in there. And this blood red, I literally didn't even reduce it. I just added to the candy into the 40/50, and it sprayed out just perfectly good. And once you lay that red over, you'll see that the flame really kind of starts blending in, and you'll have a nice, you know, red edge everywhere. And make sure you just get those all at edges. And you can even bring the candy out a little bit, and kind of just trailing off. It won't be super noticeable, but it will be noticeable in the long run, especially like in the sun outside. Your overall shape of your fire will be noticeable. So if you want to add some nice trailings with the candy and stuff, like I said, it won't be super noticeable, but it's just that nice touch. When the light hits it just right, people will be like, wow, look at the fire. It kind of even has those heat rays, you know, kind of coming off of it. So have a little bit of fun with the candy red, but that's it for the candy red. We're just going to leave that nice and let it dry for about 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and then we're going to come in and lay a layer of bleed checker. So when laying your bleed checker, you don't want to reduce. It says right on the bottle to spray it straight out of the bottle. The reason you don't reduce is you don't want to reactivate any of the agents in the candy coat. So this kind of seals that all away. So you might want to turn your pressure up just a little bit to lay the bleed checker, but 2 nice little light coats is more than enough. So now with the bleed checker on there, I'm going to give it a good 15 minutes again, let it dry real nice before we continue on. Alright guys, so our bleed checker is nice and dry. And so now what I'm going to do is come back with some more of our opaque orange. And we're going to, again, redefine some of these edges here. So now that we laid our bleed checker and our candy and everything, we have a nice red tone over all the edge, right? So we want to bring in some of the orange. And we'll do that using the same edges, right? We'll bring some of that orange right into over the red of the candy there. And it's okay if you cover the yellow, because we're going to do more yellow. But we want to bring out some of that orange. Just bring it right back on out. Kind of build up a second layer of flame almost, you know, right over that same area. You could bring in some more trails going out. And just kind of have a little fun with it. But also at the same time, you know, remember your objective is to kind of really bring out that orange, right? So like in this area, there was no orange left. So we want to bring some of that back out. And then just connect it back into the other areas that we've seen. And it's almost going to be like its own separate independent layer of fire inside of the other fire. So. And so we're basically building up what is going to be the second layer of candy fire, which will use the lemon yellow candy to really kind of bring it all together. So again, just bringing in the orange, leave some of the yellow behind. You know, you want to build up your own layer again, a second layer of fire over that first layer, right? So just work your way around, have a little fun. Working some freehand just a little bit. You don't want to overdo it with this orange either. You just kind of want to bring it back out in some areas, you know, and kind of redefine our flame is really what we're going for. Then we're going to go back and we're going to switch back off to the yellow. And maybe on this particular layer, I just want to keep it all to this medium stencil here. To really kind of emphasize a little bit more detail. And then now we're just highlighting the orange that we just painted. And again, using the same technique, coming off the stencil and kind of using it to connect it around. And here we're building up like the glowy part of the flame, right? The part that's like, that's putting off light. That'd be this layer right here. And you just want to bring it in and around. Using a little bit of freehand. Maybe leave some of the layers kind of showing, right? So you want to bring in that yellow, but you still want that orange and that red to be in the background. And all of these curves and stuff are really going to stand out once we lay our top coat over it. Use your freehand to add some nice kind of streaks coming up, you know. Kind of just want to have fun with it at this point. And then in my particular set, it comes with a nice little small stencil that has a variation on some of the curves, as well as kind of these, what I like using is some of these sharp edges here to really kind of bring out some randomness in the fire. go. Now all I'm going to do is use some of the new Wicked Opaque White, and I'm going to add just some very fine highlights here at the bottom, and maybe through some of these small flames coming up, right? Or maybe I'll add some little bit of embers before we lay our candy coat layer. So it's obviously going to intensify a lot of the orange and the reds and the yellow, but when you lay the white over, it's really going to leave in those nice bright yellow spots when we lay in the Wicked Opaque White. So now I'm just going to take the Wicked Opaque White and I'm just going to do some nice soft highlights. All right, just really easy, nothing heavy. We don't really want it to be extra white or anything like that. We're just laying in some nice little subtle bright spots, right? And this is all going to get covered back to yellow. It's not going to be white, so we won't see the white. So there's no point in trying to lay it in super heavy. All we're trying to do is give the candy some differentiations. Oh my God, that's a big word. So that you'll have some nice bright spots coming into the flame. Again, I'm just laying it in on certain areas. I'm not really being too liberal with it. I'm really being, just real gentle laying it in. So now I'm going to get some lemon yellow candy and we'll do our candy coat over the very top and watch it all kind of melt together. Then I'll lay some clear and we'll be finished with the panel. Alright, so now with the candy yellow, again we want to just kind of keep it. It's okay to lay it in over the candy red. It's not going to cover the red. Yellow is a more neutral color than red. So it will tone it, but it won't completely change it to yellow. So we're just going to go ahead and lay this candy lemon yellow in. And you really just want to build it up. You don't want to lay a heavy coat. So just better to lay 2 light coats as opposed to 1 heavy coat. So work your way around it. Give it some air, let it dry off a little bit, Alright guys, so here we have our fire. But then to achieve maximum fireness, we're going to go ahead and lay some clear coat over this. So even though this looks really good, once we lay the clear coat, the red and all the layers kind of get their own little vibrancy and it really begins to pop. So I'm going to lay an automotive 2K clear. And yeah, let's do that. Alright guys, so I'm just drying it up. This is an infrared lamp. The clear's been sitting for a couple hours on its own, letting it kind of air dry a little bit. And then we put the infrared lamp on it. We're going to let that sit for about 45 minutes to an hour. Then we'll come back and take a final look at it. Alright guys, so you can see there we have our nice fire. It looks nice and bright. It almost looks like I can warm myself up off of it. Yeah, and hopefully this process helps you guys out. Obviously, once you lay the clear, it all kind of blends in and really takes a whole different life. So yeah, again, just hope this helps you guys out. You know, you could always play with it. You could add more layers, more candy, more orange, whatever you like. But this is a pretty good basis for you to be able to produce some fire and then, you know, kind of add your own flavor onto it, I guess. So always like to see your results. If you want to tag us on social media, you know, Mike's Brush or tag CreateTex, you know, let them know you've been practicing your fire skills. And yeah, as always, appreciate all the support. Thanks for watching. Good luck to you guys in your paintings, and we'll see you guys in the next video.